Good.
We'll see. Maybe move back inside.
There you go.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Bloom Carroll Board of Education meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abbott,
Present.
Mr. Bratton,
Present.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Present.
Mrs. Sherman.
Number 3, pledge allegiance led by Mr. Abbott.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 4, approval of agenda. There is 2 items. Page 4, item 9B, 4A. We'll be taking out middle school team camp at Eastern Ohio Basketball Camp, June 9th through the 11th. That will be coming out. And the high school Midwest Live in Columbus was changed to Cedar Point. And I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, seconded by Joe Abbott.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson.
Yes.
Number 5, approve the minutes from the May 9th, 2022 regular meeting.
Did have one correction that I noticed on page 11 of your packet. It's actually the first page of the minutes. Item 5 says considered and approved the minutes from the April 1st. It should be April 11th, 22 meeting, so we'll get that corrected.
Thank you, Travis.
Other than that, I didn't see any other changes.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, seconded by Matt Bratton.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. All right, number 6, public participation. A citizen granted permission to address the board shall speak no longer than 3 minutes at one time, except by consent of the majority of the board members present. A maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each meeting. The Bloom Carroll Board of Education policy requires that individual names not be used as part of a complaint or concern being stated to the board during the public participation part of the agenda. The board rests in its president the authority to terminate any remarks which may be defamatory, abusive, or otherwise cause undue interruption or interference with the orderly conduct of business. And we have one person, Mark Williams, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
My name's Mark Williams. I'm the treasurer of the Athletic Boosters. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk for a couple minutes. We, us and you all have been going through this issue of figuring out what to do with our press box for the last few years now. And we know that the traditional idea of going to companies that make press boxes and putting them on football fields has been a way too expensive option, given everything, and especially with all the issues that most of, all of you on the board are familiar with supply chain issues coming out of COVID. So we started to broaden our horizons and look at some other ideas. A group of us went to a storage container company in Lancaster last week the notion of trying to do something different and less expensive. You know, like you see all the reports about containers being turned into homes. We talked about the idea of turning a container into a press box. And I got a bid last week from somebody that basically builds guard shacks for prisons. It's kind of a similar sort of thing. It's up high off the ground, that kind of thing. Anyway, so we're gonna start exploring more intensely some of these ideas that are different. I think we can actually come up with something that's going to be potentially really unique anywhere as far as press boxes go. My concern is that we as a group will come together with something that is going to look a little bit unusual. So I've got a request, basically. We're gonna form a committee probably tonight to take a look at this. If there would be somebody on the board that would like to be a part of our committee when we look at this, to kind of just help us guide through some of this, and maybe come up with an alternative and just tell us, you know, like, that's not gonna work, or that's stupid, or this is a good idea. That's what we're kind of looking for, someone that can be a part of that process, and then when we come back to Mr. Hahn, he won't look at us cross-eyed potentially on something that might look goofy.
Mr. Williams, in regards to, like, you said you got the quote, in comparison to what we've seen before, how, was there much difference?
Yeah, there was a lot of difference. Yeah, the guard shack, basically, was, it wasn't quite as big as the press box that we've been quoted, but it was like a good $60,000-$70,000 cheaper. And the notion of building a container and you've seen these guys, the containers have been turned into like restaurants and stuff like that. Some of this has really been kind of cool, and we think we might have some ability to turn some of this into some cash. We still think we could do the roof access to this and put up tables and chairs and sell that stuff, and people can watch a great football game from way up high. That kind of thing is what we're trying to talk about doing. So anyway, we just don't want to come together with a formal plan, and then for some reason it's not going to work in conjunction with all the things that you guys have got to take into account. So that's why we're hoping that if somebody would want to get involved to help us guys do that. So
That would probably be myself and Mr. Abbott.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those,
But you want to be involved too.
yeah, I mean, absolutely, but in terms of board representation, Joe and Rod are facility management
Okay.
Liaisons, so.
I'm familiar with the containers. I was in that industry for a little while, so I can answer some questions.
see,
there.
as I tell people, my greatest strength is my ability to write a check. And
Mark, I don't wanna go too far into it, but as you start your process, and I'm sure, we have talked a lot
we've talked a
over
lot
the
about
years.
this.
Make sure you consider a steel structure to code and
Right.
footings and foundations and
Right.
all that
Right.
steel costs underneath the container.
Right, so when we actually had, the guy that gave us the bid for basically the prison guard shack,
Yeah.
when he came here and looked, this has been about a month ago, it was clear that the concrete pad, underneath the current press box is gonna have to be torn up and replaced.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, you know, we know that
Yeah.
already. Yeah, so, but anyway, so we're just trying to come up with something, and I think, but just beyond that, I think the appearance could be, holy cow, look what Bloom Carroll did, could really be interesting.
Yeah, look forward to
So-
seeing it. Yeah.
Have you been to the fortress and build that?
Yes.
That's all it is,
Yeah, well, we actually, that company was one of the ones we got, in fact, this has been going on for so long. I think Chad and I Chad had an AD meeting up there, I think it was 5 years ago. And I met Chad up there, and we went up to look at that press box. And I think that's one of the ones where we looked at it, and then it like went from this price to like this price, like everything else. So,
How does the square footage compare to some of those spec boxes?
well, this is gonna be, I think that one at Fortress is about 500 square feet. And I've heard different, I don't know enough about the rules, but I'm understanding that if you get beyond 500 square feet with a new build, you have to have an elevator,
Mhm.
which obviously just makes this thing
Yeah.
out of the equation altogether.
Right.
So we have to keep it within that area, but I mean, so the, you know, you're the container guy, but you get them basically in two sizes, you know, 20 by, you know, 8 by 20 and 8 by 40.
They do have some 45s to try to get that little space, but I have not been, I've seen the pictures at Fortress, I haven't been there to see how they did it, but, you know, you can get into weld them together. But when you get there, you're gonna be jumping back up pretty high in price.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is the kind of thing, there's actually a company in Lancaster that does do this, we looked at last week, and I think a lot of us were really intrigued by it. I mean, that's not the only one, I mean, other companies do this too, because there's some issues with that company that I won't get into, for your time tonight, but, I just think we can come up with something that's really pretty cool, so, anyway, so we'll communicate with, Rod and, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Johnson.
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
Normally, because of the.
What usually one of them?
okay, so, anyway, all right, well, thank you, we appreciate that, that'll help us, as we go forward, so.
Just keep me in the loop when you send emails and stuff.
Yeah, we'll do, all right,
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, number 7, treasurer recommendations and reports.
Thank you. Item A is approve the May financial statements, total expense of $12,256,817.11, including just over $9.4 million in consortium expenses. I did not do an executive summary this month, quite frankly. The picture that the financials paint is really consistent with where we've been in the past. Page 23 has you kind of look at line 2, tangible personal property, which is public utility, still down. Latest I was told is to expect hopefully some remedy, either favorable or unfavorable, with our second collection of the year, which will occur in August. Otherwise, everything else is status quo with the income tax, the purchase services, and the supplies and materials kind of running as they've been running throughout the fiscal year. So a couple of weeks left in the fiscal year. We're trying to get to the finish line with hopefully adding a little bit to the carryover in terms of an operating surplus, but it's day by day right now. But anyway, any questions on the May financials or the checks written during the month?
No, I just want to say thanks a lot for helping us keep in line a lot, Mr. Bigham. I think, you know, over the course of the past 2 years, I thought we were going to take huge deficits, and we've ended up coming out pretty good.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of that's the staff has made some concessions, and the administration and the teachers and the classified staff as well. So they definitely deserve thanks and congratulations on that as well.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, seconded by Joe Abbott.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson.
Yes.
Item B is approve the following final appropriations for fiscal '22 as follows: general fund through Title 2A, as we move on to page 2. Total, a little over $151 million. This just basically finalizes our activity for the year. These numbers are very similar to what you approved in September. This just means that the final appropriations by law may not be exceeded by actual expenditures within these respective funds. So we're just finalizing FY22 here as we move forward to June 30th.
Okay, can I get a motion, please? Motion made by Rod Johnson, seconded by Mr. Matt Bratton.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
And item C is approve the first temporary appropriations for fiscal '23 as follows. This is just to get us going as of July 1st. By law, you have to have a set of appropriations approved before you can make actual expenditures and write checks. So please just don't look at these numbers. These are just a carryover from this year as we input all of the new salaries, the insurances, the contracts, all of the supply budgets for next year. We will have the actual budget for the board to approve in either August or September. So again, this just gets us going, hitting the ground running on July 1st.
Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Matt Bratton, seconded by Rob Johnson.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes.
And finally, item D is to approve the following fund-to-fund transfer from the O22 tournament account to our athletic fund, $3,321.98. This is basically a culmination of the entire year where we host tournaments, whether it be with our teams or without our teams, that we're able to hold back an administrative fee that is above and beyond once we pay the officials, the ticket takers, all of the other, the teams that are coming here, their travel expenses, and then the central district. This is what's left over that we're able to put back into our athletic fund to help all of our student athletes within the various sports. That's an advantage to hosting these tournaments. So,
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Mr. Bratton.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
and Mr. Rod Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Number 8, old business. A, approve the following policies as presented 1 through 23.
I will make that motion.
I will second.
Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Rod Johnson.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bratton,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. Number 9, superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Hahn, you are up.
Okay. Just wanted to congratulate our teachers, all of our teachers and support staff, everybody that works for the district. We had our ups and downs. I think overall it was a very good year for us. We just had some tough moments with, we're a small community and we kind of all know each other, and we had some tragic things happen throughout the course of the year, but, we were able to continue to move forward. I just felt really good about the end of the year. Obviously, we recognized our Teachers of the Year, District Teacher of the Year, Support Staff Member of the Year on our last day on June 3rd. We had 4 retirees as well, so I just want to congratulate them and wish them all the best of luck. The preliminary Ohio State tests, the OSTs, as you know, in grades 3 through 8, and then high school, we have end-of-course exams in certain subject areas that we are required to test in every year. And we typically do pretty well, really well, in comparison throughout the county and throughout central Ohio and even the state in terms of academic achievement and the percentage of students that are performing at proficient or higher. And right now, we're still waiting on our ELA scores, the English Language Arts test for 3rd grade. That'll be released on June 15th. And then the ELA scores for grades 4 through 12 will be released on June 20th. But what I can tell you right now is just preliminary, and the state still is sorting through on who needs to be removed and if there's any discrepancy with anything. But Bloom Carroll looks really good, and our end-of-course exams at the high school did very well in some government civics, geometry, highest score in the county as well. A lot of areas, 8th grade math, in terms of percent proficient looks good. 5th grade science looks really good. But again, we'll plug in the ELA scores and then I'll share those exact numbers with you. I just wanted to let you know we got that data, and things are showing that keeping our students in school and where it ranks in comparison to the rest of the county right now, it's looking pretty good. Wanted to keep you updated on some legislative, some bills that are headed to the governor. One was House Bill 583. As you know, next year, grades K to 3, currently we are required to screen all students for dyslexia. Now, keep in mind, we screen students for dyslexia now. Typically, there's also parent request, teacher referral. It could be anybody that works for that child. But the state is mandating that across all districts with House Bill 583. It has not been signed. Well, I didn't check this afternoon, but it's headed to the governor. I don't think he has signed House Bill 583 as of this afternoon. It would also, there's some riders, some provisions on this bill that could potentially eliminate the retention under the 3rd grade reading guarantee, that 3rd grade test that takes place for reading. It would extend substitute teacher flexibility. Of course, there's no emergency clause with this, so a bill becomes effective 90 days after the governor's signature, so that puts us into September. In terms of substitute flexibility, that doesn't really help a lot of school districts in Ohio in middle of August through the middle of September. But after that, it could potentially help us a little bit. The dyslexia piece of this is that it would delay the screenings until the 23-24 school year rather than next year. The Ohio Department of Education still has not released, and it's the middle of June, what assessments can be used as screeners for dyslexia. So districts haven't even made purchases yet, and some of these purchases could be programs that cost $50,000 to $100,000. And if they release that this summer, we have to make the purchase potentially for a screener. And we're up against the gun, and we start school in August, and we don't even know what screeners we can use across the state of Ohio. So there's some provisions here in some of these bills to delay that. There is still professional development training. All teachers, regular classroom teachers in grades K and 1, we are going to extend that to grades K to 3. Second and third grade teachers were required to get 18 hours of professional development the following school year. We want to get all of our K to 3 teachers done next year, which makes sense to train them, provide additional training before they have to conduct a screener, rather than conduct a screener and then train them. So the state is kind of rushing some things, but they need to put the brakes on this. It is important, but House Bill 583 will potentially do that. It's just waiting on the governor's signature. House Bill 99 was signed by the governor. It gives the district the ability to arm classroom teachers with a firearm with only 24 hours of training if the school district decides to do that. That is a significant reduction from the number of hours that was required, over 780 in peace officer training, 20 years of experience, that kind of thing. Now it's any teacher, 24 hours of training could carry a weapon if a school district approved that and had those training requirements met.
Is there requirements if they train annually?
I don't know. I would need to read the bill a little bit closer. I don't believe so. I believe it's upfront. So upfront 24 hours. So I think there's definitely some other options. That would be up to a school board. I can share my thoughts with you sometime, but I think it's better to have, to me, people that are trained law enforcement, protecting, that are really trained and active, that can make those decisions under stress. Yeah. So next thing, I just want to recognize the Transportation Department, several staff members, Carmen Spellman, our supervisor, Tony Stadler, the administrative assistant in transportation. We had an emergency on May 20th after our last board meeting, but I just want to thank our Transportation Department, how well we all work together in a crisis situation, an emergency situation. There were a lot of quick decisions that had to be made at spur of the moment, but we had a clear emergency over at Wagnall's Run, and I just want to thank the law enforcement for the job they did and how they supported the district and acted very quickly. We had to reroute elementary routes and find alternative locations, and they helped coordinate that with myself and our transportation department. I was on site, and I can tell you I was impressed with everybody, including the students, how well it was handled. We're monitoring enrollment. Concerns with grades 3 to 7, 10th grade, getting tight in some classes. Hiring is pretty much wrapping up right now. We did add 6 new positions: intervention specialist, 5th grade teacher, additional school psychologist, and but all that creates a lot of dominoes. Plus, you have your retirement situations, and I think combined between new positions and transfers, at this point we've got over 30 different new hires, transfers, adjustment of hours, that kind of thing. But I wanted to share, where I think we're at with enrollment right now, and this is kind of hard to see. It's not an exact science, but basically what I do every day, part of my day with the district registrar, you've got the enrollment from the May board report from last year, and of course, kindergarten moves into 1st grade, first moves into 2nd, so those numbers bump down. But you take that number, you take the number of new residents we currently have registered, and you can see the number of new residents that have registered at 40. You can see the withdrawals that we have to date at 6. That will definitely increase as we get through the summer and into August, but this will too, but, you know, sometimes what you wanna see is, to have a good balance, is that this number kind of keeps up with it. But as we know, for several years here, our withdrawals do not keep up with the number of new residents moving into our district. We've got 50 new open enrollment applications. These are additional, and then on top, we have the 80-plus open enrolled students that we currently have that are asking for renewals, and these are additional open enrollment applications. Currently, I haven't made the decision. Board policy says I have to make the decision by July 15th on open enrollment. These two right here are children of employees that will be following them, which is part of the collective bargaining agreement. And then you can see how many are actually registered at this point. So there's a lot of different factors. You have retentions that can impact the grade level. And you can kind of see where I think we're at as of June 9th. Right now, these look really good. I like this, where we're at right here. You can see with the number of teachers or sections that we have. And then we start to get into 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and it's very balanced right now. You know, you guys we had the board ask for a 5th, or we asked the board for an additional 5th grade teacher. And that's where we're sitting in grades 3, 4, and 5, so we're gonna have to really monitor that. And then we get into, you know, 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade. You can see right here, this big bubble, you know, our sophomore class and our freshman class right now. So the high school is, you know, we have a little bit more flexibility with scheduling and the number of electives we offer and how many sections of an elective we offer. But in terms of core academic classes, when you're talking about 9th grade required courses, 10th grade required courses, the number is still pretty good. And then we typically lose a lot of kids to the Career Center. So just kind of wanted to show you where we're at. I will monitor this every day throughout the summer. If we have to add some teachers, it's gonna hurt the budget, but there's, you know, sometimes we don't have a choice, you know, and we've got to keep class sizes reasonable. I think they are right now, but that's just kind of where we are.
On
So
an average, how many people or kids go to the Career Center?
we have about 90. I think on our last board report, we had right at 90 or 94, somewhere.
Juniors and seniors.
Yeah. So you have about 40, 45 per grade typically. So that big class of 202, there's 9 open enrolled kids in there that were accepted years and years ago, you know, when they were in kindergarten. And we're trying to get them through. But once this class of 202, you know, that class will probably end up being about 160 actually in the high school as juniors.
Right.
So we've got some plans, which brings me to my next point. Travis and I and Dennis Thompson took a walk through the old primary school over here. It's rough in there, especially with all the furniture out and just vacant looking. It's rough old building. But we think it's got some potential to help us if we move. You know, we've talked about this at planning sessions. You guys have told us the direction you would like us to go. And, you know, those modulars, those classrooms that we're in, you know, turning those over to the high school eventually, I think is a good plan for a few years to help us get through, maybe stay off the ballot during these tough times. The high school will get more crowded. There are some things we can do within the high school to free up some classrooms, people sharing and things, but also being able to turn over the district office. And the district office moving over there, there are some things that we think we need to start chipping away at on this building so it doesn't hit us all at once and we can't make the minor improvements that are needed over here and convert those classrooms into modulars from offices back to classrooms in 2.5 months during the summer. So Travis and I think that we'll probably be, and Dennis Thompson, our maintenance supervisor, will probably start doing some minor things over here to get those ready to convert to a district office. But the number of classrooms, we can get the IT department out of the high school. We can all move over here. It's been done in other districts nearby where an old building's used as a district office, but put some very cheap carpet in for sound. There might be a couple lights we need to replace. The stalls, toilets, they're for little kids, they're off the ground. Might need to boost them up, but I really think it could help us get through, 5, 6, 7 years. So just know that that's coming. We're gonna probably start doing some work this fall over here on some minor things.
So the intent-
Any questions?
Would the intent be you would have it ready for
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe the fall of '24, because I think we can start doing some things over here, getting all the old boards, chalkboards torn off the walls, getting the walls scraped, getting them painted. We need to put some new lights in. We can't really put up dividers because the old radiator heaters and then the window air conditioning units, if you build walls within those classrooms, it's just gonna be an oven. We'll probably have to start putting some mini splits in some of those classrooms. The old library, we kind of mapped it out, the floor plan, and we think we can turn that into a board meeting room and a conference room for the district office. We think we could definitely hold board meetings, you know, in that area, and actually hold them in our district office. So we're gonna start doing some things, and I don't see any huge expenses, but I just wanna let you know, we're probably gonna start chipping away.
It's not like there's,
The modules.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
it's not like there's an immediate need, is what you're saying.
No, but, so at the high school, we have, 3 intervention specialists, that have their own classrooms, and they're used a few periods a day. And in a lot of districts, they share classrooms, the scheduling's done, so they're not in there at the same time. They're out in regular classrooms supporting students, maybe a couple periods a day, they pull them back. So there are 3 over there, but I think we're probably, if not next fall, the year after that, we're probably gonna have to make the jump. Yeah, so, any questions about my update?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on to 9B, students and programs. Number 1, amend the dates of the middle school summer intervention program for academically at-risk students from June 6th, at-risk students to June 6th through the 10th, and June 13th through the 17th, 2022. Number 2, approve the following handbooks for the elementary school, the middle school, high school, and the middle school athletic handbook and the high school athletic handbook. Number 3, approve an out-of-state overnight trip for the high school choir to New York City, New York, November 17th through the 20th, 2022, pending receipt of certificate of liability. The last time we were able to do this trip and go to New York without a million restrictions was in 2018. I know some of you were not on the board at that time, but this is a trip that our performing arts program takes, and they perform, and also get to see some first-class, Broadway type performances. So it's really a good trip for the kids. Number 4, approve the following summer camps for 2022, which include overnight trips as indicated in bold print. Teams will be accompanied by their respective coaches and parent chaperones for overnight trips, pending mandated background checks for volunteers, and that would be for boys basketball with head coach Ryan Davis, middle school camp at Bloom Carroll Middle School, June 6th through 7th, and youth camp, incoming grades 3 to 5 on June 13th and 14th, and then the high school team camp at Eastern Ohio, June 19th through the 21st, and the high school event at Midwest Live in Cedar Point, June 24th and 25th. Number 5, amend the graduation ceremony dates from May 28th, 2023 to May 26th, 2023 at 7 p.m. and from May 26th, 2024 to May 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. So Mr. Conrad, Mr. McNamara, Ms. Eggleston, those two are the, Mrs. Eggleston and Mr. McNamara are the senior class advisors. And Mr. Conrad is in support of this, and so have I. I've talked to some other school districts and superintendents. A lot of families, they've had good feedback, but this would be holding our graduation ceremony on a Friday night at 7 p.m. rather than a Sunday afternoon at 2, typically during Memorial Day. We don't have to post and do public notices with the calendar because it's not changing the start or end date of the school year. It's not changing the school hours of the school year. But it would change the graduation ceremony. So I pulled up these calendars. This is a 22-23 calendar that was approved. And we would have graduation originally scheduled right here, as you can see on the 28th. We'd be moving it to the 26th, and then our seniors would be done. So they would still do graduation practice and breakfast, photos, clap outs, all that stuff on the 26th. During the school day, come back at night at 7 p.m., have the graduation ceremony. This year we were done in 59 minutes. We'd be done by 8 p.m. and we'd be done with our seniors at that point. And in the following school year, right here, we're scheduled for May 26th. We would be moving it to May 24th. So I just want to make sure the board understands that high school principal, senior class advisors, Some other school districts are doing it, and it's working well. So it is a change for our tradition, but, you know, if it doesn't go well, we could always change it back.
Is he planning on doing this outside?
No, in the
So they just
gym.
want the gymnasium?
Yeah.
Okay.
We still have some room this year available, and this graduating class is still, the junior and senior class will be okay. They'll start to get a little tricky with the sophomore class. So we'll have to see what that looks like in a couple years. But that doesn't impact, this decision doesn't impact the sophomore class. So,
Good.
motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Rod Johnson,
Matt Bradford.
or Matt Bratton, I'm sorry. You guys sound alike.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson? Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
All right, 9C, personnel and employment. Here we go. Approve the employment of Leah Phillips as a middle school media center computer science teacher. That is our STEM program here, on an initial sequence, 1-year limited contract at step 0 with a bachelor's degree, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks, and effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 2, approve the employment of Amelia Dillman as an elementary school K-5 intervention specialist on an initial sequence, 1-year limited contract at step 0 with a bachelor's degree with 150 semester hours, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks, and effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 3, approve the employment of Macy Mills as an elementary school 3-5 intervention specialist on an initial sequence, 1-year limited contract at step 0 with a bachelor's degree, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks, and effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 4, approve the employment of Madison Compton as an elementary school nurse on an initial sequence, 1-year limited contract at step 0 with a bachelor's degree, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks, and effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 5, approve the employment of Brandon Compton, no relation to Madison Compton, as an elementary school teacher assigned to 5th grade on an initial sequence, 1-year limited contract at step 3 with a bachelor's degree, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks, and effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 6, approve the employment of Trevor Thompson as an elementary school teacher assigned to 5th grade on a 1-year limited contract at step 0 with a bachelor's degree, pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks for 22-23. Number 7, approve the voluntary transfer of Christina Baumgartner to elementary school head cook in grades 3-5, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 8, approve amending the work hours of Shawnee Corwin, middle school cook, from 4 hours per day to 5 hours per day, effective with the 22-23 school year. So all these cook positions that are coming up, all of our buildings now have the same equal amount of hours per day for all their kitchen staff if this is approved, okay? And it did not, and it only added 1 hour compared to last school year, total hours per day for our whole kitchen staff, okay? Did I just read number 8? Yeah. Number 9, approve amending the work hours of Carolyn Cow, elementary school cook, from a 3.25 hour per day to 5 hour per day position, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 10, approve the employment of Brenda Weber as a 3.25 hour per day middle school cook on a 1-year limited contract at step 0, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 11, approve the employment of Alexis Lilly as a 5 hour per day elementary school cook in grades K-2 on a 1-year limited contract at step 0, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 12, approve the employment of Michael Yanati as a high school aide on a 1-year limited contract at step 30, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 13, approve the employment of Carrie Adams on an 8 hour per day high school, as a high school custodian on a 1-year limited contract at step 2, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 14, approve the employment of Suzanne Brustel as a 5.25 hour per day bus driver on a 1-year limited contract at step 14, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 15, approve a 1-year unpaid leave of absence for Taylor McLaughlin, a 5th grade teacher, for the 22-23 school year. Number 16, approve Amber Harris to provide 7 hours of home instruction for the 21-22 school year at the tutor hourly rate. Number 17, approve Deborah Miller as a long-term substitute for Joey Conrad at the middle school, effective from March 23rd, 2022 through April 8th, 2022. Number 18, approve Ray Sheehan as a long-term substitute for Leah Cheek at the elementary school, effective on or about August 18th, 2022 for up to 60 days, pending substitute approval by the Fairfield County Educational Service Center. Number 19, approve amending the one-year limited contract for ILISA patent from step 0 with a bachelor's degree to step 0 with a bachelor's degree with 150 semester hours, effective with the 22-23 school year. Number 20, approve the employment of the following classified substitutes for the 22-23 school year for Amy Prevenzano, Aaron Harris, Bev Hockman, and Anna Marie Sheets. Number 21, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for the 21-22 school year pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks. And that would be for Danielle Hicks in the middle school and Kristen Harlander-Sony. I'm sure you guys saw the art display, the art shows at the elementary school and middle school. I thought they were well done and deserving. 22, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for the 22-23 school year pending timely receipt of verifications and background checks, as presented, A through O.
So moved.
I'll second it. Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Jimmy Johnson.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Number 23, approve the following extended service days for the 22-23 school year. These would be the same from last year, which last year were reinstated to pre-pandemic extended days.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Mr. Bratton.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Abstain.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, number 24, approve the following athletic supplemental contracts for the 22-23 school year, pending receipt of verifications and background checks for the following coaches as presented, A through J. And number 25, approve the following athletic department volunteers for the 22-23 school year, pending receipt of verifications and background checks as presented, A through E. And 26, approve the list of school volunteers for the 22-23 school year, pending receipt of background checks.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Abbott.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
All right, 9D, contracts and agreements. Approve an agreement with the Fairfield County Educational Service Center for employment of the following personnel for the 22-23 school year. Ms. Raniger, our curriculum director and communications coordinator, which we've done for several years with the ESC. The one 2-day a week or 0.4 FTE school psych that we're adding. The 4 educational aides on behalf of the district, those are the current number that we have, and then 2 transportation aides that we contract for. That is the same number we had last year. Okay, number 2, approve a contract for security services with the Fairfield County Sheriff's Department for a school resource officer for the 22-23 school year. And Deputy Mark Bennington will be staying with us for another year. We really appreciate working with him.
Concentrates at this campus. Is
No,
there
no,
anything over-
he's both. He goes over to the elementary school multiple times per day. He does, naturally with the high school and middle school, he's here a little bit more visible, especially during the lunch hours and times. But he is out at the elementary school too during the day. He has an office out there too.
Great.
Number 3, approve an interagency agreement regarding the provision of service delivery and transition for young children and families from May 2023 through April 2023. Basically, this is an agreement, it's standard with all the local county schools. We work with the Head Start program, Job and Family Services, the courts. Basically, it's an agreement between all the agencies that we're going to work on behalf of the best interest of each child that they're working with.
Should that be 2022? Yeah.
May of 22, yeah, sorry.
I'll make his motion.
Second.
Who was that?
Brian.
Motion made by Jimmy Johnson, second by Mr. Bratton.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
All right, nothing under E. 9F, personnel resignations and retirements. Accept the resignation of Stone Scott, elementary school teacher, effective immediately. Accept the resignation of Michelle Williams, middle school cook, effective immediately. Amend the retirement resignation date of Margaret Hunter, elementary school teacher, from June 3rd, 2022 to May 31st, 2022. And number 4, accept the resignation of Alexis Donahue, JV girls soccer coach, who had 50% of the stipend for the 22-23 school year.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Bratton, second by Rod Johnson.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
And Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Number 10, new business. A, approve a resolution naming Nathan Conrad as acting superintendent in the event of extended absence or leave by Sean Hahn effective immediately. B, approve the following policies for the first reading, presented 1 through 7. Should there be a voting
Yeah.
line?
Voting line there.
Yeah.
Mhm. Add that in.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Mr. Matt Bratton.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes. Number 11, board report and information. A, Board of Education liaison updates. Number 1, facility management.
Other than we discussed tonight, if you wanna hang out afterwards for a few minutes, we can, get with Joe and I and Jim and figure something out.
Great. Number 2, personnel and labor management. Nothing there. Number 3, OSBA representative, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, we'll be getting probably the fall information for Pearson in regards to the annual conference, so just be on the lookout for it.
Okay. Number 4, policy.
Just approved the last meeting's, for the first reading, so nothing further.
Yeah, we just met, when was that, June 6th?
Last week?
Last
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
And these policies were the ones for review.
Yep.
Number 5, safety, health, and wellness.
Had a meeting in right after the last board meeting in May, and Mr. Peltier was our chair. So Shauna Williams will be the new chair of the wellness committee, school nurse.
Great. Number 6, finance, Mr. Brown. B, upcoming PTO Booster Board of Education meetings, 6/20 of 22, Juneteenth holiday, offices are closed. July 4th, Independence Day holiday, office closed. 7/11 of 22, Board of Education regular meeting at 6 p.m., Bloom Carroll Media Center. 7/11/22, athletic boosters at 7 p.m., Bloom Carroll Middle School cafeteria.
Just so you guys know, I will not be here the next board meeting,
Okay.
on vacation, so just want to give you guys heads up.
Thanks for giving us heads up. Number 12, adjourn and recess. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Joe Abbott, second by Mr. Bratton.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes, time is 6:48.
All right.